Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Adult Chair on rashpixel.fm. I'm Pete Wright, and I am thrilled to be here leading into the summer with Michelle Chalfant. How are you, Michelle?
Hey, yes, we are leading into the summer. I'm wonderful.
Excellent.
How are you doing out there in Portland, Oregon?
The sun is shining. It is beautiful. However, we are about to leave it, and we're heading to New York, and my understanding is it's pouring rain, thunderstorms, lightning, terror of the gods.
We're getting the tropical storm from the south up here.
Oh, yeah. See, that's the thing. We don't get a very long, blissful season here in Portland. We really don't. And so it pains me a little bit to go away for any period of time because I feel like I've earned it. I've earned this weather. We are talking about black and white thinking today, how to change black and white thinking. And I'm very much looking forward to this conversation because this feels like something I've run into a lot lately. Before we get started, head over to michellchalfant.com to learn more about this show. You can subscribe for free by signing up to our mailing list and search for us anywhere the finer podcasts are served with a quick search for the Adult Chair. You can join the conversation on Facebook or Twitter. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget, that Facebook private group is going strong, and we are taking some time off this summer, beginning in July. We're going to be rebroadcasting some old shows. So if you've heard all of our old favorite shows, this is a great time to get into the Adult Chair private group and share your stories while you don't have anything super new to listen to. What do you think?
Definitely. If you're going through anything or want to share something that you've experienced about shifting chairs or living from your adult or getting stuck in the adolescent, this is what we're talking about. We're having a lot of fun and a lot of growth. I mean, again, I say this every week, but a lot of great vulnerability. Yeah. And I offer some really good tips, as do other people. A lot of people are chiming in and commenting, and it's a beautiful, beautiful group. So please come join us.
Yes, please join. You can find a link for that over on the website as well. Okay, Michelle, black and white thinking. What is black and white thinking?
Yeah, black and white thinking is when we think in extremes, using words like you always do this or you never do that. And it's coming directly from the Adolescent Chair. There's no gray thinking if we're living in absolute thinking and black and white thinking. It's very rigid thinking. And we do that in order to keep us safe. Many of us for whatever reason, many of us have childhoods where we had to feel safe. So living in what I call living in boxes, it's either like this or it's like that. There isn't any gray. It's what kept us safe. I know for myself, growing up with alcohol in the home, and not just my nuclear family, but that extended family, it was unsafe. You never knew, if there's alcohol, you never know who's going to have an explosion, who's going to show up drunk, who's going to ruin a holiday meal, who's going to ruin a Sunday meal. It was very unsafe. So I learned to like predictability, and I lived in boxes. I lived in black and white thinking for sure. I did not like surprises. Don't surprise me. I still get startled when people try and surprise me, even at work. I find that people will come into my kitchen here where I work, and they'll say, I know you're going to startle Michelle, but I'm walking in the kitchen. And I'm like, thank you for telling me ahead of time. Because I grew up like startled quite a bit. So I really was one that lived in that black and white thinking. So if you can relate to that, this is a good podcast to listen to, because we're going to talk about how do we become really more of a gray thinker or feel more comfortable. I guess a better way to say that would be feeling more comfortable not living with those boxes.
Well, the reason this has come up for me is obviously related to, our current political climate. It is very polarizing, right? Polarizing is like a breeding ground for black and white thinking. And what I've been finding is, this is obviously not a show about politics. We don't want to talk about politics, but but the connection, I think, is really apparent. When the environment is black and white, it's easier to lapse into black and white, that sort of fixed thinking, with other things that aren't political, with family, with friends, with just, who's going to pay for dinner. We get locked into these tracks of the way we approach the world, I think, as a result, in some part, of the way the world is attaching itself to us.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yes, for sure. And I'm seeing that it's the same thing with, are you a Democrat or a Republican? And there's no
Right.
gray. And I'm like,
No.
I'm gray. I'm actually a little bit of both. I'm like,
Right.
yeah. And I see that a lot in the last few months. I'm hearing that a lot. And yeah, for sure. Are you a successful person or a failure? Well, what if we're both? Like, how do we go there, and how can we accept the fact that maybe we're not one or the other, but we're somewhere in the middle? And I find for me, and I remember saying this earlier in my marriage, my husband would say, what if it's not black or white? What if it's gray? What if it's this, And I'd say, I don't speak in gray. I do not speak in gray. It's only this or this. And knowing what I know now, looking back, I remember feeling so unsafe going into that gray zone. Like, gray is unpredictable. It's living with trust. It's living in the moment. And again, black and white is in the adolescent. It's where we're very controlling, and black and white is a controlling thing.
Sure.
And 90% of the time, it's a very controlling thing, actually in 100% of the time. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. It's there to keep us safe. I actually have a friend who is very Republican, and we love to talk politics because we challenge each other, right? And she tries to challenge me and I challenge her. And one day she said to me, you have to stop because you're shaking the foundation that I'm standing on, and it's scaring me. And I may not, and she'd said, and I don't want to leave this where I'm standing. And I know that what you're saying actually sounds right, but I'm afraid. And I said, okay, fair enough. So again, that's that black and white thinking. Like, it's to keep us safe. And when we grow up feeling any sort of unsafe at all, we cling to this black and white thinking. And again, it's controlling. It keeps us safe. So, I worked with a lot of couples today, actually, and it made me think about our show. And I actually used the term black and white thinking many, many times today. And a couple of the couples that I saw today were dealing with addiction. And both of them were recovering addicts, and their partner was having a really, really hard time trusting that they're not going to relapse. Both of them are actually having the hard time. So we had to talk a lot about that, and a lot of the words that come with absolute thinking or black and white thinking, like, well, he always does this or she never does that. And I had to stop them. And I said, okay, is that true? And these are the tools that we would use to help us get out of this black and white thinking. Is we want to stop ourselves and say, well, hold on, because a lot of people are, and I would say this too, well, you're not trusting. Well, how the heck are we supposed to trust if we're terrified? Again, how can we trust that gray is safe? And to someone that has lived with black and white thinking, that's really, really scary. So one of the things that I invited these people to do today, in fact, was, okay, let's just pause for a moment. And let's ask ourselves, is it true that, he always shows up like this,
Right.
Well, yeah, it's true. I'm like, okay, every single time that you've known him for many, many years, he is always, not done, fill in the blank, or done, fill in the blank. And then the one woman today said, well, not every single time. I said, okay.
Okay, now we can step back from the ultimatum.
Yeah, right. And I said, okay, so then tell me what else is true. So remember, what we're doing with this is we're moving into the adult chair. We're moving out of the adolescent chair. So we want to just loosen the grip that the adolescent chair has on us. Because when we're sitting there, again, we're sitting in fear. We're sitting in control. We're sitting in absolutes. We're sitting in black and white thinking. So how can we slide into the adult chair if we're feeling so scared? And we don't want to give up it's giving up control. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to start asking ourselves, is that true? Is that 100% absolutely true that every single time you've ever known this person, X has happened or that has happened? And you know what? Most people will be like, well, no, not every single time.
Right.
There's the gray. So it's about sliding over and learning how to feel gray. And then the next thing I do is I ask people, I invite them to, okay, so feel the truth in that. Feel the truth in the fact that not every single time he's done this, but he's done it sometimes, but most of the time he's actually shown up and been a stand-up guy. Can you feel the truth in that? Yes, I suppose. And it's hard because from the adolescent, we don't want to admit that. We want to stick with our black and white thinking. So it's pausing, it's asking if that's true, finding out what is true, and then in what I call inviting that in. And when I say that, I mean inviting that into the body and feeling it in the body, living chin down, bringing it below the chin in the core of the body. Where do you feel that maybe your husband is an okay guy? Where do you feel that in your body? Maybe he's an honest guy and he wasn't in the past and you've got all that history, but maybe now he is. Maybe he's shown up in the last few months as an honest guy. Can you breathe that in and own that now as your reality for right now? They struggle with it. And I did too. I don't want to get out of black and white thinking. I don't want to speak gray.
Because this is home. Like, I really like that your friend is as wary or as aware of herself and her position to say, you have to stop because you're shaking my worldview, I mean, you're shaking a thing that I'm not ready to embrace yet. What you're saying sounds logical and I can't accept that as logical, but that is also sort of the first step to realizing that you're in black and white mode, right? Isn't it?
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
And that's sort of where this kind of you are at least going to be open to awakening to the fact that you're stuck in confirmation bias, right? You've been stuck in this sort of signal loop of being satisfied with only the signals that that support your position, and when you're confronted, you realize your response is not that strong. And maybe you're right, but at least being confronted allows you to say, "Hey, there's opening for a discussion. There's opening for me." And I'm not just saying with another person on a topic of great conflict, even inside ourselves, to sort of debate our own positions on life and where we live and how we eat. Like,
yes,
isn't it?
Yes, and yes. It's all of it. So you were talking about eating.
Yeah.
And this is one of the cases where I think that, again, I had said earlier that I think 90% of the time, I think I said something like this, 90% of the time, I think that black and white thinking is not healthy for us because it does lock us into that adolescent chair. However, Here's my little clause, that black and white thinking at times can be a positive thing. Mm-hmm. And in my case, I will say that way back when in college, I smoked cigarettes. And I know it's so disgusting. I can't even believe I'm saying
it's just so far from what I imagine of you.
I know.
That shake, you have to stop. You're shaking my worldview.
Okay.
I can't handle this.
Maybe we should edit this and not have it in the show. No, I don't care. I'll own it. I really don't care. It was the 80s and everybody smoked and I smoked.
Don Johnson smoked.
Yeah, it was like the cool thing to do. So I did. Right. And I did it because everyone else did it and it was wonderful. And I graduated and I went to my first job and my boss said to me, "It's so gross that you smoke." And I said, "Okay." And she said, "Why don't you quit?" And I said, "I can quit whenever I want to quit." She goes, "I don't think you can." And I said, "Oh, yes, I can." Like, I have an extremely strong will. And she said, "Fine, stop smoking today." And I said, "Fine, I'm done." She goes, "You can't do it." And I said, "Oh, yes, I can." And that was it. And that's where I think that black and white thinking is a really good thing. And maybe that's not as much black and white thinking as a very strong will, but I literally never smoked again. I was 21 or something, or 22. And that was it. And she kept hounding me and saying, Did you really quit? Have you really stopped smoking? Go smell me. I'm done. Like, I am completely done. And I think you and I have talked about that with the eating thing.
You just came up with the title of this podcast, though. Smell Me, I'm Done, episode 71. Anyway, eating thing.
Because you know how gross it is. It's so disgusting. Gross. And I honestly, my brain could shift into the black and white thinking that fast. And I said, "Fine, I'm now a non-smoker." And I haven't touched one since. Like, totally done.
Yeah. That's the blessing and a curse of having a will that is binary like that, in those contexts. I think you probably represent a small population of which I am not one, a member. I'm doing it right now. I think we've certainly talked about it. I'm on my second week of my very low calorie diet. I've lost a bunch of weight, but I'm in that space where I'm feeling good. I'm feeling fine. I'm sustained. It is motivating to have the weight fall off, but I've also done this before. And so this is one of those cases where I want to avoid the yo-yo. I want to avoid the experience of putting all the weight back on. And so I'm looking to channel some of that black and white thinking, not in the context of, having that discussion with myself to find balance and gray, but just to have the discussion with myself that, I can commit to being a different kind of person. I can change my state. And that state is, I don't have to eat all the Oreos. I'm not that guy. I don't have to, be the guy who eats my meal and then the leftovers on everybody else's plate. I don't have to be that guy. And so that's where I'm looking for that sort of, black and white conditioning to help me change state and not become parochial.
Right. And I think that people that go too extreme and don't allow themselves to have a cookie, let's say, or whatever their thing is, that's not good because parts of us in that adolescent chair get so ticked off. It's like, I want that damn cookie. So, and that I think is going to be our future episode. I think we're doing in August, the mindful eating, that we're going to discuss more of that. But when we talk about the black and white thinking, if you're going to lose weight, that is, I think it's the way to go. It's got to be. Are you going to eat this or not? Are you going to stick to this low calorie diet or not? For me, I became a raw vegan. And again, it was easy for me. I was like, okay, I'm done with cooked food. It was almost overnight. And I was eating everything.
You speak about that in the past tense. Why are you not a raw vegan today? Do you remember the decision point where you said, you know what, I think I'm going to eat that chicken?
Yeah. It was hard because I did research so much on how they treat animals. And I was like, oh my God, I can never eat food again. And I didn't do it for that reason. I actually did it for health reasons. But I became a normal eater, or I guess you'd call it that, and dropped the raw vegan thing.
A normo.
Because what is it called? I don't know what that's called.
Omnivore. Let's stick with omnivore.
Yeah, okay. Well, because I still kind of eat more vegetarian. I don't really like meat. I never have liked meat. So anyway, I'm a blood type. But it was hard. I found and again, I was a raw vegan, mind you, around the maybe 2002. Nobody else was a raw vegan. Nobody talked about really even.
There were no restaurant support.
No, again, there wasn't what's happening now. I was doing it when. Again, I was taking fish oil and probiotics and people thought it was crazy way back when, but that's when I was a raw vegan and it was really hard for other people. They didn't know what to do with me on Thanksgiving.
Sure. Oh,
and on dinner parties.
Right.
And I remember bringing over a raw cheesecake. It was made out of cashews. It was fantastic.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
So I served that and they were like, this is so good. It tastes a little different, but it's delicious. I'm like, great, it's raw. And they're like, what? But now there's so many recipes. I could probably do it. And I've thought about doing it again because I felt kind of like how you feel so good. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I felt so good being raw. But back when I did it, we weren't drinking alcohol. We were doing nothing. We weren't drinking alcohol and we were eating us very healthy all the time. And I found it was more uncomfortable for other people. They said, well, we wanted to invite you over, but we didn't know what to feed you. So sorry, you're not invited to our dinner party. I'm
invited.
Like, what? I can bring my own, but it just got a little bit awkward after a while. So my husband came off of it first and then I just kind of followed. And I'm still a very clean eater, but, yeah. Anyway, so being black and white was really helpful when I became a raw vegan. I've done that.
I think not just that; it's about any kind of habit, any kind of change you want to make in your life. This is it could be a utility.
Definitely. See, this is why, a lot of people say black and white thinking is bad all the time. I just don't agree. If you're going to commit to exercise, of course, you don't want to be an extreme exerciser where you are exercising 4 hours every single day and it's unhealthy. However, if you're going to commit to something, sometimes it is okay to say, yeah, I'm doing it and nothing's going to get in the way. When I think about writing my next book and you yelling at me about the first book saying, get in your chair, put your butt in the chair and just write. And I think that's how it's got to be for me with this next book I'm writing. It's I've got to sit down every day. Nothing gets in the way. That's a little bit of black and white thinking. So oftentimes when people live in black and white thinking, when it's creating anxiety or depression is when it's a problem. That's when the red flag goes up. And that's when we have to become mindful and say, hold on, I think I have to step into the gray. And again, we go through these steps of, is that true? Is it true that fill in the blank? So let me just go over these really quick steps. If you are stuck in this black and white thinking and then you're experiencing some anxiety around it, because the anxiety, we don't want to let go of the control or the boxes. So I got to stay in this black and white thinking. This is what's making me feel safe. But ultimately, again, that's keeping us in the adolescent chair. So we want to be able to move to the adult chair. And where we can trust that what comes our way is okay. And this is just part of my journey and all of that kind of thinking. We can't do that in the adolescent chair. It's a very tight energy. We don't breathe really well there. We're nervous. We're anxiety stricken. It can lead to anxiety because we're so worried about letting go of that control. If you're stuck in with black and white thinking, ask yourself if it's true. Is it absolutely true? Is it 100% true what your thinking is? Find your new truth. Let that truth, as I say, go chin down, feel it in the body. Let your breath breathe in that truth. And when I was working with this couple today, I said, can you breathe in that truth that actually he was an addict before, but he's not an addict now? And she says, yeah, but he could relapse. And I said, he sure could. But is he using today in this moment? She said, well, no. And I said, okay, so can you feel that truth that right now, he's actually pretty darn healthy. Can you feel that truth? And she said, well, yeah. And I said, okay, so it's more than when people say, yeah, I know that that's true. It's what I call chin up. It's all in the brain. But what we want to do is penetrate the brain and come down into the body. We want to get it into the body. That's where we have that shift. That's where we then can go into the gray thinking and feel safe not being in a box. So I said to her, breathe in that truth that he's healthy right now in this moment as we all sit in this room together. Feel it in your body. And at first she had said, I can't, it's hard to breathe. And I said, yeah, I know. Let's breathe together. Let's all of us breathe together. Nice and slowly breathe it in, breathe it down, pull that truth down inside of you. Where do you feel it? And at first she'd said her heart was really tight and it was closing in. And I said, okay, let's just keep breathing it in. Just say to yourself, he's healthy today. He's healthy for right now. And she kept saying that. And then she goes, wow, I feel like looser. I feel like more relaxed. And I said, there you go. There you go. So
that's where we want to live. Yeah,
we want to live in what's happening right now, because let's face it, I could die tomorrow. I could get hit by a car tomorrow. So-and-so could relapse tomorrow. This could happen tomorrow. But we want to go into this moment of what's happening right now in this moment. That in that place, we can let go of the always and should. Because think about the absolute thinking or the black and white thinking of saying always, you always do that and you never do that, or you should do this because you're going to make me so upset and you always have done that in the past. That's living in the past and the future. But when we're settling into the moment, we slide in the adult chair. We're becoming mindful of what's happening right now. And this is where it all changes. This is where that programming changes. We got to bring it into the body. We want to find the gray. We want to find the alternate truth, bring it in and breathe it in.
This is one of those examples that also gets me thinking about competition. And it's the kind of competitive space that we get into as adults, even though we remember it as adolescents, as teenagers, out on the field, in direct, athletic competition. It's that competition of that says in your inner ear, it says, hey, you should do this thing because it's the only way your business will be successful. This is the only way that you will make any money. This is the only way that you will not be a failure in your future. And that kind of black and white thinking, that is the space, the sort of brain damage, right? For lack of a better internal vernacular, that can be so paralyzing. And it's exactly like understanding your relationship with that language. And when you're triggered to discover, hey, I'm clearly not in my adolescent chair. That's I could use more centering in that area. Just as you're describing, that's where I need to slow down and reflect more often.
Exactly. And that's the magic word is slow down. We're so fast moving, which creates fast thinking. And I'm not sure what comes first, fast moving or fast thinking. Maybe the thinking comes first. But when we can slow down, step into the moment, we can start to unwind our thinking and search for what else could be true. What else could be true? If you can't find your new truth in the moment, what else, if you could guess, what else could be true in this moment? And when we find that and then we can breathe that in, it really, truly changes everything. When we live in that gray zone, we're much happier, we're more peaceful. We've slowed down that thinking. We can relax, get in our bodies, start to ground again. I mean, it's a really, really beautiful space to be in. That black and white thinking locks us up, puts us in fear. We don't breathe correctly. We're shallow breathing or holding our breath. It's not healthy for us. We've got to move into the gray thinking. And you know what? The adolescent chair, when we're there and living with the ego, it wants to know what's coming. It wants to know, and it's going to reach into the past and go into the stories about what happens in the past and launch into the future and want to say what it's predicting is going to happen in the future. And most of the time, we are incorrect. So the only place to live is in the moment. Yeah. In the gray zone. And just trust. When we say things like, well, I'm just going to trust, BS. Because the adolescent's got a, lockjaw on you. It's like, no. You can say it.
Lest we forget, I trust no one.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you think you're going to trust, but I'm not going to let you trust anybody. And it's like, I can settle into trust when I settle into my adult chair. I can't reach it from my adolescent chair. I can't trust. It's too scary. I can't let go and be in the moment in that adolescent chair. I've got to be in my adult chair. So
this is good stuff and timely, and it is also the last new show we have for a month. We're taking July off of new shows. We're going to have some rebroadcasts and a nice radio show that you've never heard. So don't unsubscribe. We're still around. We'll be back with our first new show on August 3rd. First week of August. So hope you have a great July. Take a vacation. What are you going to do? Are you doing anything fun?
I'm going to go visit my family in North Carolina.
Well, they're good people.
That's fun. And my son is being shipped off to Austria for 3 weeks to go see our foreign exchange student that we had. So that'll be fun too. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's really great.
He keeps informing me that the drinking age is only 16 over there, and he's 16.
How useful for you to know that as the parent.
I'm really so glad to know that. Yeah.
What a relief.
Yeah. I was so excited for him to have like this new culture, and they're going to go and have a vacation in Italy on some island. And I'm like, you get to go to my homeland before me. I was kind of annoyed. And then he goes, yeah. And I'm saving up as much money as I can. And they're going to a music festival. I said, for what? And he goes, well, I only have to be 16 to drink over there. So I was like, oh my God, cancel the plane ticket. I was so stressed out. I was like, what?
Beware black and white thinking, Michelle.
Yes, exactly. And I am living, and I had to move over to trust because it was a little bit of a shock to me to hear him say that. I was like, oh my God, I can't control him over there. There's the trust.
You've done your job. You kept him alive this long.
Exactly.
Enjoy Austria.
Exactly.
That's great. Well, excellent. A safe journey with your family. And thank you, everybody.
You
thank you. Thank you, everybody who's downloading and listening to the show. We sure appreciate your time and attention. And until August, we will see you right here, firmly seated in our adult chair.